Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you all so much for joining us today for this live stream event. My name is Alexia, and I am the program manager of the Microsoft Reactor Toronto. I will be sharing session resources with you in the chat. But before we begin, I'd like to quickly review two items: our code of conduct and event guidelines. First, please take a moment to review our code of conduct. Microsoft Reactor seeks to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. We encourage engagement in the chat, but please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional and on topic. And secondly, our event guidelines. The session is being recorded and will be available on demand through the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel in about 24 to 48 hours. I will be sharing the link in the chat for our on-demand content. And if you have not been on a live stream to YouTube before, please note that you must create an account on YouTube in order to have access and interact in the chat. You can set that up now. And if you're unable to use the chat but have questions, feel free to reach out to us through social media or on our website. Now let's get started.
Hello, welcome to the AI 900 certification program, Artificial Intelligence Fundamentals by Human in Azure AI. I am Jacqueline Ramos and I am part of Human in Azure AI leadership team. This program was created by the Homemakers Code and the Tech Human community in collaboration with Microsoft experts. It is open to the entire community to learn the fundamentals of artificial intelligence, chatbots, machine learning, and generative AI. The program includes 8 live classes, completely free in English, and required proof of participation at the end of the program. Requirements for proof of attendance. To receive your certificate, follow 2 steps. First, attend the live classes or watch the recordings between May 60 and 29. Second, complete the keynote texts until May 31. A week after the second class, you have access to a quiz to reinforce what you have learned. When did you earn the AI 900 certification? There are additional 30 steps. Complete the Cloud Skills Challenge before May 31. You have access to a free Microsoft Learning Path with hands-on AI labs. The 100 most committed students, you received a voucher for the AI 900 certification free of charge. Good luck with your studies. See you soon.
Hey, how are you, Ilan? Welcome, everyone. Are you so excited like me about this session?
I am. Good morning, Ivana. Nice to see you.
Likewise. Just FYI, people, I'm in Argentina. Ilan just found out that I'm in Argentina. Where are you in Ilan right now?
Yeah, I am in Washington State here in the US. I moved 6 years ago, but I lived in Argentina many years. I have wife and kids from Argentina.
You love my country, right? Everyone loves Argentina.
Yeah, I love
Not
it.
because of Messi, but everyone loves Argentina. So we are here today to talk about introduction to AI. I don't know about you, but most of the people that I talk to, they always say, okay, the introduction is the most boring part because I would like to go ahead and start jumping and practicing things. But I really find interesting better to first understand how things work and what can AI do and how it's been done in order to go into the practice. So from my point of view, we have the most important session of the entire training right now. But without saying, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Ivana. I'm a Microsoft MVP in AI. As I said, I live in Argentina. And I'm here with Ilan. Ilan, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Ilan Miska. I'm originally from Israel. I lived in Argentina for many years. Then I moved to the US. I'm a Microsoft technical trainer, and we will try to present to you AI today.
Yeah, note on the side. I traveled to Israel and I love your country. Just note aside. Okay. If you want to follow or connect with Ilan and myself, you have the link in there to search for our LinkedIn profiles. But we are also, I'm assuming you are also Ilan in all the other social media networks. We are happy to help if you have questions after the training and during the entire training, you can ping us and we are happy to help you. Let's go ahead and introduce our moderator. So we have on the back Jacqueline, which is an amazing woman from Brazil. We have Marco, who is going to be on the chat too, and Christine. Did you have the chance to meet them, Ilan?
Oh, Kristen, she worked in the fan team for a long time, so we exchanged some emails. But yeah, in person with Mark, I think, on the last meeting, and with Jacqueline for sure. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, yeah, me too. I love her.
yeah.
Great. Now, in order for people to learn, where do we start? We're going to be starting on that link that is appearing on the screen. You can go ahead and use your cell phone to scan the QR code, and that will redirect you to the Women in AI certification information that you are seeing on the screen. In there, you will find not only the trainings that we will provide, but also some examples and some tutorials on how to apply all the different information that you will see during all the sessions on the trainings. Now, our agenda for today, do you want to present the agenda, Ilan?
Yeah, we'll start with AI basics. So we will cover how AI, artificial intelligence, is a thing, right? How something can be intelligent. So we'll talk about that. Then we'll move to machine learning, which is the process of dealing with that functionality of the technology. And then we'll move to AI fundamentals.
Perfect. Yeah, and we have a huge demo at the end. So stay tuned because we do want to share that with you guys. So let's go ahead and start. AI basics. So, what is AI? I always talk about Terminator when I have to talk about AI because every time someone introduced me AI at the beginning, I was saying I'm going to build a Terminator and that's going to end the world or something like that. Then another approach came and saying that AI is going to take my job, right? Everyone was saying that AI is going to take our jobs and we are not going to have jobs anymore. But I like to think that AI is going to be like superpowers to us to make our job much more better. And also, we something important is that we are helping computer process and respond in intelligent ways. So as you can see, what is AI is a software that mimics human capabilities. So we are in charge of what AI is going to do. The first item that we are seeing in here basically spot AI can spot patterns and predict outcomes. So I like to think that AI learns from the past data that we are providing to AI to make predictions about events. And one example that I have in there is Netflix. I love watching movies, I love watching series, and I love how Netflix suggests the right movies to me. Why? Because exactly Netflix is using the movies that I saw, basic, and also, of course, trying to evaluate the choices I made and suggesting different movies that I might like. So that's one example of how AI can be applied to make our lives much more better, right? The other one, detect anomalies and make decisions. In that scenario, I think it's super important that we think that it can recognize unusual events. For example, fraud detections that in the past it was such a difficult thing to do. Right now, banks can use AI to detect unusual transactions and prevent fraud, which can save us a lot of problems and keeping our money safe. But the one which is my favorite, I'm going to continue talking about the other ones, but it's understanding images. Now, AI can analyze photos and video, identifying object faces and even emotions. I'm going to tell you something, Ilan. I have two dogs, and I recently rescued another one. But this is the thing. Every time I left my house, I was super scared that they get into a fight or they didn't get along because I wasn't there in order to train them to get along. So I thought, why don't I use AI to monitor my dog's behavior so that can trigger a warning to me? I can get into a camera and scream at them so they can no longer fight. And that's it. AI can detect emotions, not only in humans, but it also can recognize signs of anxiety or aggressions in animals. Did you know that, Ian?
Yeah, I actually didn't. That is very clever. And we used to do that for, I remember, I cannot tell the brand, but we had a pilot a few years ago about the mood of the customers and what they were looking for when they were looking to the register, what they wanted to buy, to position products to improve that. And I have a lot of examples there, but it is crazy that you're doing that with the dog and it helps you. And I'm glad you're doing technology that way. Very useful.
Yeah, as I said, AI is giving me superpowers to be present where I'm not. There is another example, which is AI help us process language and whole conversation. So we know that the AI can read, can understand, and generate language for us. That's why it's helping us create chatbots much more better than they were in the past, and also virtual assistants, which is something super useful. But my favorite is Copilot. I don't know. How about yours, Elon?
Yeah, I cannot
Do
say
you have?
anything else. It needs to be Copilot for me. There's nothing else. And yeah, it is an assistant, and I'm living with that now. I don't know if I can live it,
Yes.
leave it there, like not using that anymore. I don't know. I will need that now. It is
Yeah.
toxic.
Absolutely. Yeah. And especially now that we can talk with audio, it's like having a conversation with someone. You can speak in different languages because it translates to different languages and it assists you writing tasks and everything. There is also one other item that AI is helping us with, which is extracting information or valuable insights from massive amounts of information. We know that we can uncover maybe key facts and trends that might be difficult for humans to do. There was one scenario that it used, from my point of view, this part and also the image understanding, that is the gasoline stations, that you can have multiple cameras and detect if someone is smoking near an area that can be dangerous for people. So in there, if you let the human eye like cover, let's say 30 cameras, that's going to be difficult. But with AI, that can be done easily. And you only can help the human being to point their eyes to where the dangers might be. So that's for me a clear example of how that can be AI can help us in that situation. How about you? Do you have an example that you can think of like that?
Yeah, I remember we had this AI wave when it started, and I remember we have a huge commitment in Microsoft to helping the world be a better place. And I remember we had this initiative going on in Africa to prevent poaching of rhinos. And one trainer that worked in the team used that as a good example. And I remember the rhino poaching was crazy thing happening. So they install cameras to detect the rhinos, for instance, but also the activities around them. So they prevented that.
Wow.
It is crazy. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, love it. Now we have the basic on where actually we are applying AI. Now we can think that AI can be a super smart assistant, but actually it's more than just one thing. We have different capabilities or abilities that we call workload, that can execute different AI tasks. And we can divide them in the following that you are seeing on the screen. First of all, we have machine learning. Do you remember the example I gave you about Netflix? That it can suggest different movies? Well, that's machine learning. Did you know that? Well, actually, Netflix is doing machine learning, and Elon is going to talk about that, right? Not about the example on Netflix, but he's going to explain machine learning. We also have computer vision, which is my point of view. I like to say AI that sees. So it's the part of artificial intelligence that can see things. And do you remember the problem of my dogs? Well, that's called computer vision. Now, let's talk about NLP. Which one was your favorite assistant, Ilan?
I cannot think of anything else about besides Copilot. Do you have any other assistant? I don't know.
Oh no, unfortunately, I can say no. Yes, Copilot is the only one. Well, in there we are using natural language processing. That's a clear example of how NLP is applied. Then we have the other one, which is document intelligence. This is the AI that organizes information. It's about how businesses handle, for example, invoices, contracts, or reports, and how AI can help scan, sort, and process this amount of data. A clear example, I want to tell you about something. A customer in the past, it was a lawyer company, came to us, to the company I work for, and requested a flow in which AI could grab the contracts, make the first read, and it was trained like in all the other different contracts that the company already had, and could detect the different changes and highlight them and send that changes to the different areas or departments in the company. So it created a flow much more fast than waiting for someone to read it, make the changes or highlight the changes and send it to the other area. So that was a potential that they understood and we had the chance to work on, which was amazing. The other one that I can see on the screen is knowledge mining. It's AI, from my point of view, that can find things, as I said, that can search through huge amounts of data to uncover patterns. Do you have an example of knowledge mining that you can think of, Ilan?
Yeah, I'm thinking, for instance, we're going to be talking about a penguin size and of measurements from the penguins to find the breed of the penguin, for instance. That can be a good example of classification. But the knowledge mining is how you get information out of something that doesn't have any structure. So you want to understand for QA, for instance, what are the common questions, and then from there make an index and create that. So that can be a thing, a chat that is created for your organization. That can be knowledge mining. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. And then we have generative AI. I can see this is the new one, the one that is mostly popular among people, which is where AI, from my point of view, gets creative. It can write stories, generate art, compose music, even assist us with coding, which was a huge thing for developers. And it can even create realistic images or help us write emails. You mentioned Copilot. Copilot, when I think of Copilot, we usually think it on the web, but I love using it in Outlook because, as we know, we have it in there and it can help us write emails in different languages, etc. Now, as Spider-Man said, with great powers comes great responsibilities, right? As we said, AI can do incredible things, but AI is only as good as the data and the decisions that are happening behind it. If you use incorrectly AI, it can cause harm, reinforce biases, or make decisions we don't understand. And that's why there are some principles that are presented by Microsoft, which can help us develop more ethical kind of AI. And those principles are the one that you are seeing on the screen. Well, so we have fairness, which is the AI. It says that AI should be fair and work equal for everyone. Basically, AI needs diverse training data and strict fairness checks. So that can, for example, help us. Let's say we are creating a model that is going to detect if a loan can be approved for someone. We need to make sure that it doesn't unintentionally deny loans to specific groups of people based on historical data that reflects unfair practices. So we need to be fair with everyone, and as I said, work equally with everyone. Any comments in there that you can bring to the table, Idan?
Yeah, I'm thinking very interesting that you're pointing that AI needs to be responsible, right? How in the world it is just a machine, what it can do to us, right? So you're saying Terminator,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking that in Microsoft, for instance, since we're talking copilots, we have a commitment to transparency and confidentiality, integrity of the information. So it's very important for us that the information is not being shared, but also how it is being processed with no bias. And for instance, you have an application that is processed by AI. That application will be measured against your likelihood to repay, if that is a credit score, if that is something like loan, or can be anything else. It doesn't have to be biased in any way. So the color of the
Mm-hmm.
skin, the your gender, and so on, it doesn't have to affect the results. So we are making a huge effort on that to prevent the data, even though the data available will tend to be biased because society is. We will try to fix it.
Yeah, love it. Okay, then we can mention reliability and safety, which is basically preventing error. AI must be reliable and safe, as you mentioned. Privacy and security protect our data. For example, a healthcare chatbot trained on patient data could pose risk if sensitive information isn't securely stored. When then we have inclusiveness, basically that AI works for everyone, transparency, understanding AI's decisions, and finally, accountability, who is responsible for AI decisions. That's an interesting question because AI makes decisions, but remember what I said at the beginning, human must take responsibility for its outcomes, right? Now, with this information, we have the basic knowledge. Now, where should we jump on, Glenn? Let's jump. How about let's jump on the first one, interesting one, which is machine learning.
Yeah, let's start with machine learning basics. So let's start here. Did you know that in um, World War II, we had this event happening of a lot of people dying, right? So the idea was that they needed to reinforce airplanes for the war, and they didn't know how to do that. They were thinking, yeah, let's do this. Let's try figure out where the holes on the plane were and try to make them stronger where the holes were. And based on the findings of a single um, engineer, they recognized that even though the bullets were hitting all over the plane, and even if reinforced, it will be good for the plane, those planes were landing. That is why they were getting the bullet holes for them to analyze in the first place. So the content of the analysis was skewed. So if you think about it, right, you have the data, but the data is not
Yeah.
showing you what you need to analyze. How you know that? So they recognized that they needed to protect the cockpit because the pilot was landing the plane. So the idea
Yeah.
is there's hidden values that you need to find. Machine learning can do that for you. It is sometimes not only based on data, but it's also based on people working on the models. And that is the people behind machine learning. Thank you so much, Ivana. I was thinking on how to move forward with the slides. But
I'm thinking AI is helping us think with each other.
yeah, what is machine learning then? You have these features and you want to make a prediction. So this is called training. You have data. Data can come from many different aspects of reality. It can be, like I said before, from a penguin. It will be maybe the height of penguin, the weight, the colors, the color of the peak, the ratio between the peak and the body. You can tell a story with different measure points, and at the end you can infer that's as a result will be a penguin. But what if it's something else? How you tell the difference between one and the other? So this is how we create what is called an algorithm. We have an assumption. We are testing our assumption with the model. So we will try to make X, the features, correspond to a label, which will be the outcome of that features, like our assumption. So what happens with the unknown? We need to be able to predict that somehow. We need to be able to infer what label we can apply to different features. So what is the relationship between the two? Actually, machine learning will have specialized tools that you can reuse, pre-built, and pre-train data on that particular topic. With that, you can try inferencing what data can be created from nothing. So that is why we call it machine learning, because based on that data, it can actually make a prediction that will be very close to true. So that's the idea behind machine learning. What data you have available, the more data you have available, the better the machine learning model is. And also, the better the code, the better the specialist, and the power of processing will get you closer to that. So what types of machine learning we have? Oh, thank you, Vanna. Do you want to have anything to that? Do you have any personal experience with inferring data from labels from data?
Sorry?
Do you have any experience inferring data from labels? Labels from data. For instance, tomorrow will be Sunday, so will it be raining? That will be a question, for instance, that we need to fix with.
Yeah, so I love the penguin questions because I know that
Yeah,
you have an example in there.
right.
So we have, can we predict penguins? Because when you think of animals, you usually group them like dogs. You group dogs, and that's it. Penguins, you group penguins in your mind. But how about moving them in different species or so?
Yeah, true, because they can have probably the same colors and they are different things. So what is the attribute that makes the thing what the thing is? So definition will be where machine learning will thrive. You have machine learning, which can be supervised learning, but you can have unsupervised learning. What is that, right? Because supervised learning, you know what you're looking for, you know what the thing looks like, right? So you can apply labels. For instance, what is a regression? It will be based on certain events. For instance, you have a cold day and you can think, I'm going to be not selling too much ice cream. And if that is a hot day in summer, probably I'm selling not only one day ice cream, but every day. So I'm predicting
Yeah.
a number. That is not called a regression. I can go back to it and quantify how much will I need based on season, for instance, based on regression. So what else is a good example for you, Ivana, on that, on summer? What do you do in summer that you want to predict?
Let
Do you
me
go
think.
to
Well,
Argentina?
I'm going to tell you something. On weekends, I go and sell 3D printings in a feria, like in a square in here. Like I love painting 3D stuff and going and selling them. So what usually is like, okay, what's going to be the weather like? What day of the month is going to be? Do people have money or not? And
Yeah.
are they going to buy me stuff or not? Which one is the one that is more popular? So I have all these different like items that I consider in order to prepare for selling on every weekend. And I think that can be covered in here, right?
Yeah, of course. The next thing is binary classification, and then we have the multi-class. That will be a multi-class, and we have an example with penguins. So we are we're teasing the penguins so much. The binary classification is much easier in terms of the results. It can be right or wrong. It can be it is or it isn't. So binary classification will require still machine learning, but it won't be met with a specific number other than 1 or 0. So for instance, you can use that after a long investigation on x-rays on patients. You can predict if they have lung disease, if they have any other malfunction that you can, in this case we're talking about diabetes, but it can be anything, right? So going through a lot of medical records, it will be a huge deal, right? Compare that to machine learning. Machine learning will use, we're going to be talking about how it is built, the knowledge is built based on the data, but it will end up being the likelihood for you to be on that situation. So what is the model learning and evaluation? We're going back. Oh, sorry, is that the?
Do you want to go back?
No, I think that's the one the one prior. Is it coming again? Or maybe it
No,
is
here
coming.
we have the validation
Oh, the
and the
validation. Sorry,
predictions. Yeah.
sorry, I got
Don't worry.
distracted.
They're similar. They look
They're
similar.
similar. They look the same to me. Thank you so much. They need to be. One student in the
Good
call.
question. What's the difference between this one and this one? Okay. And
Yeah,
what's important, because in here we have the data which we train the algorithm, the model, the
yeah,
prediction. And in here we have the validation data, which is something super suggesting. And I know that is part of the exam. I know we're preparing for an exam in here.
yeah.
And
Okay.
sorry, I won't stop
Yeah,
anymore. All yours.
yeah, we are just giving you an eye-winking moment. We're not saying what questions are in this exam. That is forbidden, but this is
Yeah.
important, right? So it is. You have the data, and this is from past observations, but you're saving some of the data because you want to
Yeah.
check whether that's true based on the new data and help the algorithm grow towards getting the right model for it. So it will be an iterative process. It will start with data that is unknown for the algorithm itself, but to train the data, you have to have the validation as a baseline. So what you're doing, you're testing with real data the validity of the model. You're fine-tuning the predictions. So the prediction will be based on the weights, and that is an additional value that the algorithm will use to fine tune to how to get closer to the results. So it will be first random, then we will try to fine tune that, but it will be multiplying, adding. We'll try to get there in step by step. It will be a cumbersome process at the end, but it is a machine, so it can take iterations forever to get to the destination. Yeah,
Good.
so that's the model training and evaluation. And that takes us to how this will play out in the big picture. We talked about a small cell trying to do these calculations to arrive to a conclusion, but in reality, this is a network of different cells. They are talking to each other, fully mesh connected, and they are able to interact with each other to come up to that conclusion, like a filter. So if you think about, let's say, the penguin example that I gave before, the size of the penguin, the ratio with the peak, but what about a small bird? A small bird, they will have a young one. It will be a different ratio, right? So maybe based on the
Yeah.
size, I can discard that value. I need to know that up front so I can say only the adults will count for me to count as a valid identification. So this neural way of thinking, discarding what is not that relevant, will create a mesh of information. And at the end, it will look and feel like neurons. They say, I'm not a scientist in, in the human brain, but probably the ones who are can relate to that. I was told it works similar. So I'm saying that. But the machines, they will work iterative. They will use the values they are getting out and feed that back. And those iterations is what will arrive to the conclusion of the likelihood for that to be one event or another. Yeah.
And as we said at the beginning, we are teaching AI human capabilities, right?
Yeah, we're trying, and it is very similar. And here you can see the mesh of cells talking to each other. And based on the values, each one will be an iteration. They will be very closely connected. Note that each one is connected to everything else. So each layer, this multi-layer, can reinforce the values back and forth. This is the calculation that will drive the result to be one thing or the other. In this case, classified, right? So you have these measurements from the penguin, and you have the measurements being fed here to the loop. And this deep learning will use different layers. The machine learning will use that iterative process multiple times until it reaches a conclusion. The likelihood, it won't be certainty, but it will be very close, right? So here we can say that the penguin one is the one that was measured.
Now, do we need to know about this deep learning to apply AI? What's your thought on that? Your personal thoughts?
We don't. It is fully baked in the solution. So this is a very important topic, Ivana. Thank you for
Yeah.
bringing that up because I mentioned that during the intro, but it was brief. I said the model is already trained, right? So what training means, they know about penguins, right? They know all of the
Yes,
sizes of the penguins, and the
exactly.
and what we are using is actually for recognizing penguins. So you don't need to do that if you're working with a machine learning model. So it is embedded, it is working for you. And probably this is for you to understand that it will take time. It won't be exactly as you might expect. Probably data that might be not as easy to distinguish one from the other will be slightly off. So the prediction can
Absolutely.
be probably fine tuned. Yeah.
Yeah. Why did I ask you that? Because sometimes students, when they come to me, they usually are scared because they see something like this and they say, this is absolutely mathematical, and or it's algebra and I don't know, but I want to use AI. And let's say you can do this, you can learn about this, but this is not a stopper for you to learn AI. And this course is an introduction to AI, not only this session but the entire course. And you're going to learn how to apply AI without getting to know this. This is the first step. Then you can go here and go back to this video and try to see what happened and what we explained in with the penguins again, right?
I love that. That is exactly right. And yeah, try to get a grasp of it. Yeah, perfect. So, what is machine learning? Is a cloud-based platform. So, what you do in machine learning studios, you go and deploy your learning models. You select which ones you want to use. You train them with the data, and it is the way you interact with Azure. In this case, this is the coming topic to extract the data using our compute power, our elasticity. So it is the services that are
Got it.
available in Azure. Yeah,
Perfect. And let's talk about services.
of course. And since we need this brain to work for us, we need this capacity, this compute power. So Azure offers what is called the cloud. If you think about clouds, probably you're thinking of weather. It is someone
That's the
else's
first thought,
computer.
right?
Yeah, we here in Seattle, we think about weather like
I
clouds.
know.
It can be the weather, yeah, but it is 200 days out of the year. But the cloud in this case will be something that is elastic, that you can use whenever you need and discard whenever you don't need that anymore and not pay anymore. That is the idea. And it needs to be flexible, pay for what you use. And this is what we offer in Azure. You see, every other cloud provider is offering the same. This is just, I'm saying Azure just because this training is about Azure cloud, but it can be any cloud that you're using. It will respond to the standards of the cloud, being able to provide you with elasticity, and meaning that you don't need to think how much you need, you're just using it. And once it is done, it is done, you're not paying anymore. In Azure, we have layers of governance. Here, you need to first subscribe to us like any other service. You need to prove that you are who you say you are. You need to give us a form of payment that is called a subscription. Like if you are using your cell phone, whatever other service you're using, you need to subscribe to that. And once you configure your subscription, then you are able to deploy resources in Azure. The resources will be grouped in resource groups. This is used for lifecycle management, and you can access software-defined storage, compute, and network. So reliability is provided by us, but it will be also a shared responsibility that is covered on AZ 900s if you're interested. So
Yes,
we cover
Azure
them.
fundamentals.
Yeah.
Yes, and one important thing, if you don't have a subscription, there is a trial that you can get when you log and you put your credentials and everything in Azure that gives you an amount of money to spend, but also there are a lot of services which are free to use. So that's super interesting and that's another training, but at least we are mentioning it. And I'm sure all the other speakers will also talk about Azure in general because it's needed. And we are going to be talking about this today too. Now, let's talk about the services related to AI in Azure. Elon.
Excellent. And we have a question then in the chat. Tamla, thank you. We can
Oh,
explain scalability more. And the idea is with our services, like you see on the screen, the machine learning, I'll start explaining the services and I'll add scalability a bit more there. So you don't need to come back there, but I can just go with the slide. Yeah.
okay.
So, thank you. So when you're using machine learning, you're using a part that is a platform as a service which we manage. We are saying these are the services we want to use. I don't want to use all of the services because I don't want to overspend, right? So I'm only using the services I want, and those services will be first references to the limits of I want to set on my subscription, how much I want to use and how much I'm willing to pay. But behind the scenes, also sometimes you need to scale out to run the tasks that you're asking AI to do. And at the end, that will be compute capacity. You can either calculate that yourself, which is scalability, or you can let Azure do that part for you and only charge you for it. Some of the services will offer you that option. You're paying for compute units. I don't want to go too deep there, but the idea is whether you need to calculate that or not. If you don't, it is elasticity. Normally comes at the price. If you're using elasticity, you're paying a bit more for not having the overhead of management, but it will be much easier on you, right? I hope that
Yeah.
helps. So Azure Machine Learning is a platform for training, deploying, and managing machine learning models. So again, that is the way we describe the world around us and the problem at hand. It will be a way to describe based on the data what knowledge will be, right? So Azure AI services, I remember Ivana explained a lot of that around the speech recognition, language, decision, and generative AI. Those are Azure AI services. You need to deploy that. Then you're paying for compute on whether you're using that or not. It will have a cap, so you don't overspend, but it will be available for you to deploy that. And Azure AI search will be exactly the knowledge mining. You are giving it a data set, and it will be able to index that based on the commonalities on the data.
Good. Now, how can we use? Do you know how can we use? So, if you've never used Azure, there are some items that we need to think of. You mentioned one, which is the subscriptions. So basically, subscribe to Azure or other cloud, but Azure better. And inside there, you can create different resources. All the standalone one, which is the resource for specific service. Let's say you want to just use a speech service, that you can go ahead and use that one, or general Azure AI services resource, which are resources for multiple uses. Let's say you, I don't know, you're trying to build an AI development that is using generative AI with AI Foundry and different services inside AI Foundry. So that will be like general use of AI services. And how can we consume them? Basically by through a REST endpoint and an authentication key that is provided once you create your service. Any comments in there, Elon, that you want to add before we jump on the
Yeah,
Azure
I'm thinking
monetization?
whenever you are connecting to any services anywhere, you need to know how it is communicating and encrypt the communication between the server and the client and whatever devices. So it is a huge topic. I don't want to start that conversation because it will
Yes.
never end. But there you have it. You have a key for encryption to communicate to the services, and also some options to make it private, especially. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So I know we don't have that much time, but we recorded this small demo that will display, for example, you are seeing in here the portal of Azure. This is the home. You can see on there all the different things that I have. If you navigate to the left, you have a menu in which you can select, for example, all services, which will display all the different things that you can use inside Azure. In here, you can use, for example, DevOps, identity. We are going to be working with AI plus machine learning, which was the topic that we discussed today. In there, you can see all the different services that are available. For example, computer vision, custom vision, speech. But right now, this short demo, is going to be creating an Azure OpenAI service. How this is kind of the view when you select to create that kind of service. There is a button that says create the Azure OpenAI in there, or you can click that one at the top. If you click that one, that will lead you to this kind of screen in which you can select the subscription. You can have one or multiple. In my case, I have multiples, but I will select that one. You can create a new resource group, or maybe select one that you have. Resource group for me is like a invisible folder that covers all the things that you're going to be working in. The region, that's important. Why? Let me paste in there. The region is going to be the place in which your services are going to be deployed, right? And let's say I'm in Argentina. I selected East US. Is that the best fit? Kind of not, because that's super far away from me. I think Brazilian would be better, but don't ask me why. I love New York. That's why I usually select East US. Then you can select a name, but this is important. I pasted a name which is already in use. So what I did was I changed to Woman in AI, Woman in Azure actually, and selected a price tier. So remember that we said that you mentioned something in here that we are using compute from Microsoft, Ellen. So we need to pay for that compute. But the important thing is that it's not that expensive. Like, it would be much more expensive to build all the compute in your house and maintain and have all the licenses and everything in there. In here, you can just select the price tier, and if you want to check the pricing, you can click on that link that is in there that will lead you to a page in which you can learn about how you pay this service in particular. That will be available for every service that you want to build. I'm pretty sure that will be covered in another session. Then let's go ahead. I will click next, and let's go ahead and create our Azure OpenAI service. So does this mean that I already have one model, ELN, to use in here? Have you created an Azure OpenAI service before?
Yeah, I created some. Yeah, if you create an open AI, you're getting the option to select which engine you are using for that account. It is an account actually, and you can create multiple. Each one of them will be based on whatever you need, right? So it will be the open AI. It is the large language model. So yeah, you have the option to train it, where the data is coming from. So that is what I did. Create a quick chatbot. Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to scroll because I know that we are against time, but yes, you are correct. So that created an instance of services. And now what we need to do in order to work with that is to deploy a model. So we have in here, once the survey has been deployed, then you can go to this page, which is ai.azure.com, which is the amazing AI Foundry, which I love so much. And if you see at the left in here, you have the deployment options, which means that if you go in there, you will have available all the different models that you can deploy to use through the REST API and the authentication key. As you can see in there, you have GPT-4.1, GPT-4.1 Mini, 4.5, O3 Mini. So in this demo, I selected O3 Mini, if I'm not mistaken. And you can, of course, oh, sorry, that's happening when you are against time. So let me go back. There. So when you click deploy, you have different things that you can select in there, like customize, whether if it is the model version that you want to use, or whether it is the deployment you want to be global or not. And once you have once you deploy the model, it will lead you to this part in which you have not only the different SDKs that are available to work with that model, but also you have demos on how to use them in your code. So if you're learning AI, for example, in this scenario, I want to learn how to consume that model O3 Mini in an application that I'm building. It's going to be a Python because Python is the one that is selected in here. Okay, and you have in here, okay, you can grab the authentication API key in there, step 1, step 2, install dependencies, etc. And you have all the code to test that in your own computer. And you can use or make use of the model in here, which is the playground. This is my favorite part because in here, let me go and stop 1 second in here. You can see that it already selected the deployment that I did of my model. And then we have the instructions and context part. So part of the things that you're going to learn in this course is what's the context of the model. I'm going to just go back and I'm going to show you 2 contexts. One is going to be, I'm going to say, you are an assistant that helps people find information about Star Wars only, because I'm a huge Star Wars fan. So if I put that personality or that context or instructions to this specific assistant, I'm going to be asking, what's the weather like in Argentina, for example? And that specific assistant is not going to talk about Argentina because I told him your scope, your content is only Star Wars. And that's replying that no, hey, I'm only in Star Wars. Now, what's the weather like in Naboo, which is a city of Star Wars, if you guys see that one? And it's going to reply, what's the weather like in Naboo, or kind of. Now, I will change that to information only about Argentina now, okay? And since I heard that you lived in Seattle, Washington, so I'm going to say, what's the weather like in Seattle? But remember that the context of my assistant is only Argentina. So is it going to know what's the weather like in Seattle? I think he's not going to know. Yeah, no, sorry. Seattle is not in Argentina. But if I said, what's the weather like in Salta, which is the city I was born in, it's going to tell me kind of what's the weather like in Salta the entire year, but not exactly right now. Why? Do you know why, Elon? Why is it tell me right now the weather?
Is it connected? I don't know. Is it connected to the internet?
No, it's not.
Oh,
It's not connected to the internet. So that's another thing. How do you connect the model to the internet? That's if you want to learn that, you need to keep on seeing the next episode of this training, Elon. I think that's it for us, right?
oh, thank you so much, Ivana. I love teaching with you.
It was amazing, Nilan. So I hope everyone learned a lot. You have the information to follow us on LinkedIn. And I hope to see you again, Nilan, on the next session, maybe. Okay? Take care. Bye bye, everyone. Have a nice day.